Hi, I'm Stephen Agunther. I'm the designer of Career Decision Coaching, and today I'm going to be talking with you about the history of career development and career counselling. So, a long time ago, career was about the family business, following in the father's footsteps. So, the last name's Smith and everybody's a blacksmith. Career was quite straightforward in those days, and not really something generally to be negotiated or decided on either. Then came industrialization and a lot of things changed. Jobs became disassociated from history or traditional location, and a lot of new opportunities opened up and many new careers emerged. So career development then meant securing a job and rising in that job. In the post-industrial age, things have changed again, and in modern times there's a great deal of fluidity in the whole careers market. There's new professions rising up and old ones falling away, especially in relation to technology. And the idea of a job for life is no longer something that most people aspire to or could even be possible. In fact, over a lifetime now, they estimate that people will get 12 to 15 different jobs, and they'll probably change careers 5 different times. So we're in times of a lot of change and uncertainty. So the role of career coaches in amidst this is to not just equip people with basic skills and knowledge and understanding of how to use them. It's more a perspective of career guidance as lifelong learning. Some of the core ingredients of career coaching, career counselling, firstly, start with understanding the person, their ambitions, their interests, their skills, their experience, their motivation. Secondly, linking that with the career, with the educational system, with the labour market. And thirdly, following through in terms of action and educational and vocational activities, for instance. Finally, leading to securing the right job, which may mean helping with interviewing and advancing in the position. So career coaches work across a number of domains, with psychology, with education, with sociology, with labour market conditions. This makes it quite an interesting profession or activity. The psychological side is often about motivation or self-esteem, interpersonal effectiveness and decision-making. The labour market side is knowledge of workplaces and how they work, the complexity particularly of the marketplace for jobs, the kind of employment opportunities that arise and the opportunities that are always coming up anew. So that's a brief introduction. Now what I'm going to talk about is some of the major theories of career development, take you through a brief overview. So firstly, we have in the early 20th century, 1908 initially, was Parsons, who developed some of the core concepts of what's called matching theory. So basically, what you need to do is you need to understand the individual and their trades. You need to know something about the nature of the jobs and the labour market, and you need to make what he called a rational and objective judgment about the relationship between the two groups of facts. So it was all about finding what's called a good fit between the individual attributes and the particular jobs that they're interested in. So this notion of fit has over the years continued throughout this field. If we skip ahead half a century to 1952 and Rogers, who developed what he called a 7-point plan in terms of the identifying the different attributes of individuals. So this is all part of that first step. So it's physical characteristics, their specialized aptitudes they might have, their general intelligence, their interests, their attainments, any kind of personality disposition they have, and the kind of circumstances that they're in. So jobs are matched against these attributes. And again, the question is, if the client's a good fit, was the job of the career counsellor in those days. Then in 1966, John Holland introduced a particular kind of occupational classification system. So he identified jobs in terms of 6 different characteristics: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. So from his point of view, he's categorized jobs, and the people that came after him have categorized, like, I think 20,000 jobs in a directional of occupations according to 3 of the letters of these different 6 characteristics, 3 most important letters. And so the idea is that you assess an individual and you find out what them 3 most important letters are, and then you find which kind of jobs or occupations match best. So for instance, the first one, realistic, that's about activities that are hands-on, so it might be farmers, or it might be greengrocers, or it might be, army personnel, people that are working with actual objects, the real world. So, if you've got that interest, then obviously you want a job that's kind of active or outdoors or something, and not just behind a desk pushing papers. So the fit is very important. So the first 3 letters are taken. It's quite a good system. It's been very much validated by a lot of research. I still find it quite useful. I include it in my list of inventories that we go through. But it's also limited because it assumes a particular kind of stability of the labour market, which is certainly not true anymore. And the matching, like any matching, it has to be one of ongoing evolution rather than sort of for once and for all, this is your characteristics and these are the characteristics of these careers, and then either you match or you don't match. So the next person I'll talk about is Donald Super, who was writing in 1967, and his theory has become very, underpins a lot of career coaching work, and although other theories have come up since, it's still very influential. So primarily it's a developmental theory, so it's looking beyond simple matching at what the terms he came up with, life stages, lifespan, and looking at career as an evolution, as a developmental process through different stages, not just a one-off decision. It's actually a series of decisions. So he took a time perspective, past, present, future, on this. And so a coach who works on this basis is looking at a much bigger picture than the client's just presenting to them. And they're thinking about this, where they are in their life stages. He also introduced this idea of work-life balance that since has become, quite popular. And we get people undergoing sea change and changing their careers partly because of that. So the first thing he starts with is what he calls self-concept, which is a constellation of the beliefs that we have that make up our identity, our particular attributes, our aptitudes, our abilities, and our desires. So all that add up to both an individual self-concept and then to an occupational self-concept, which is related to that, becomes a kind of career preference, what kind of job or career that you lean towards. So Super pointed out that this self-concept changes over time through the situations that we encounter and through the evolution of our thoughts, our opinions, our judgments, our competencies and capabilities. So as a person experiences more, the self-concept develops. So career coaching and career development needs to take into account that ongoing process and see the person as a work in progress, and that this career development work needs to occur over a lifetime. Super talked about 8 basic roles in life that we pretty well all have: child first, and a student, what he calls a leisureite, citizen, a worker, a parent, a spouse, and a homemaker. And so over the course of a lifespan, those roles play different kind of, have different contributions to our career. He's very much this developmental theory, so he talks about the different categories of stages. So he saw that there were 5 stages of career development. The first stage, which is growth, that's basically up to about 14 years. The second stage, which is 15 to 25, which is exploration of the job market initially, and then an establishment phase between 25 and 44, and then a maintenance phase between 45 and 64, and then what he calls a decline phase after 65. Well, you have to remember he was writing in the 1950s, and I guess we probably hopefully have a different view of post-65 other than decline. For some people that might be true. I'm 61. I certainly don't plan on declining anytime soon in my career. I aspire to be like my grandfather, who worked as a lawyer until he was 95. So, yeah, I guess different people have different stages of development, but nevertheless, it's a useful idea to consider what is the developmental stage someone's in and what are the developmental tasks. And he also characterized these tasks. He called them crystallization, specification, implementation, task stabilization, and consolidation. So these are all frameworks that can be useful to think in terms of when encountering a person and their here and now needs and interests. There's the three basic elements which kind of go throughout most of this work: the personal factor, the individual characteristics, the connection and fit between those patterns and careers which may be more or less suited, and the situational factor, which are differences in terms of what's available to someone according to their own history, their socioeconomic status, their family of origin. Even though he did attend to these situational factors, that was a later addition to his theory, and certainly his ideas have been critiqued, for instance, for their failure to consider social factors that can influence career decisions, such as the challenges that women or ethnic groups face. So, development's not the same for everyone. Then there's Roberts writing in 1968, and he introduced something that he called opportunity structure. So he was particularly interested in young people and their entry into the career market, and he saw that there were a number of major determinants of their career choice, which were the home life they came from, the environment, the school, the peer groups, and the particular kind of job opportunities. So these are all limited by constraints, for instance, expansive or contractive labour markets, the distance to work, the kind of level of qualifications that they achieve, or their ethnicity. So he did in fact take into account these kind of factors that Super didn't sufficiently. And so he challenges the emphasis in psychological career theories, which are more about choicefulness. And he was much more interested in career development as more about sort of labour market linking, placement, follow-up, and less theory-driven. So he talked about what he calls individualization, the life patterns that people have that become more and more individually distinct at the same time as often social networks these days are shrinking, or concrete social networks, and the environment has seen over the last many decades the breakup of traditional industries and large employment firms. There's been increased rates of residential mobility, often increased instability in marriages and families, a weakening of neighbourhood and community. So he pays attention to all of these field factors that are changing and sees them as important ingredients into understanding how to support career development. It's not just you can do whatever you want. Then we have Krumboltz, who was writing in 1976, who proposed an approach to career development which is based on what's called social learning theory. So it's about experiences that we have over the course of a lifetime that we learn something from. So there's an evolutionary component, and what he calls happenstance, or we could say chance. So yes, he, like most people, are talking about matching individuals to congruent environment, but he said that assumes that the individuals in the environment are constant, which is often not true. So his emphasis, therefore, is much more on learning experiences and tracking them, being interested in them, creating them. Certainly, formal school settings, for instance, or university vocational settings, apprenticeships are about learning, direct, intentional learning experiences that often have, rewards or punishment in terms of classic learning theory. There's also learning that we get from direct experiences, which are not so formally constructed, but may have significant emotional experiences associated with them and therefore embed as learning experiences. And then there's secondary learning, observing others or learning theories, studying books. So it's important from his point of view to study and attend to people's kind of learning experiences and to do what we can to facilitate them developing new experiences which are going to assist in their career development. It's not just about categorizing people through assessments, which was very much the sort of first half of the 20th century. It's a matter of learning new skills, but learning new skills can be stressful, so things get in the way of taking action, fearing making decisions, or external influences such as family attitudes, personal obstacles, burnout, career change, peer relationships, changes in life roles. So all these things need to be taken into account, and then we need to find ways to contribute and support people to continue to have growthful learning experiences which contribute to their career. So he saw that as very much the role of the career coach. And he also introduced, as I say, this idea of happenstance. So he saw the value of unplanned events and their influence. Again, career development is often thought of like this kind of template that you unroll, whereas he saw that many times the things we gain in terms of learning or a change in evolution happens through things we don't plan. So he saw the value of indecision. Again, careers are often about making decisions and following through on those decisions and reaching goals, whereas he proposed that indecision means openness to new experiences and possibilities. So it's a cool kind of perspective. His idea was that the ultimate goal of career counselling is not just this sort of matching business, but it's creating satisfying lives and less focus on just the making of decisions. And he saw that the testing should be used to stimulate learning, not just match up people. And the career coach needs to support people to get people into exploratory action from which they can learn things, and to encourage open-mindedness and to be interested and maximize the benefits from unplanned events. And he also sees the career development process as one of a lifelong one based on lifelong learning. So what else? He also proposed that the distinction between personal counselling and career counselling should disappear. He preferred to call it transitional counselling rather than career counselling, because it's managing the ongoing process of life transitions. Next, I'll talk about Rowe, who developed some psychodynamic theories in 1957 onwards. A woman, so that's, I think, one of the few women theorists amongst a lot of males. So being psychodynamic, she was interested in understanding the kind of motivations, the intrapsychic process of people, what their drives, their purposes, in order to facilitate career exploration. She pointed out that our occupation is a source of great individual satisfaction and satisfies a lot of our needs, the basis of our social and economic status, gives us our purpose in life. She also developed an occupational classification system, because before her it wasn't so systematized. So she based the analysis of occupations in terms of intensity, of the interpersonal relationships, the degree of responsibility, and the difficulty level, the skill level involved. So her basic classifications were service industries, outdoor, organizations and technology, business activities, science, arts and entertainment, and general culture. And she also was interested in the family order as one of the elements of the birth order is an important ingredient in terms of people's occupational interests, and that has been validated through research. Then we come to Mark Savickas, who was writing then in the late 1980s onwards. He's still around. So he developed what's called narrative approaches to career development based on Alderian notions of lifelong learning and a sort of a positive orientation to human beings and their potential. And he was interested also developmentally in the impact of childhood experiences on lifestyle and therefore career styles. He emphasized the importance of really getting to know and observe the client, which in career decision coaching is a big part of what we do. We don't just give people assessments and leave them with it. We want to interact with them so we really get to know them. He also proposed the importance of subjective assessments of clients rather than just attempting to be objective, which is what a lot of these sort of assessment interests try to do, and certainly what some of the early theorists proposed. So the modes of practice that he suggests, the person-environment fit, that's in all of the theories, developmental orientations, that it's very person-centered, aka the ideas of Carl Rogers and person-centered psychology and counselling, and goal-directed, which is certainly one of the things that characterise probably all career coaching, and do differentiate it from what's generally understood as personal counselling, which is not so goal-oriented. So some of the things that coaching depends on from his point of view: trait factor matching, yes, which does involve some degree of expert diagnosis and finding out what the suitable fit is. Developmental approaches, which see the client as operating along a spectrum of development, which needs to be taken into account. The kind of opportunity structures that talked about before, is what's going on in their environment, and the coach playing a kind of a skilled helper role, which is really facilitating the development of those persons' values. He critiqued some of the sort of pragmatic approaches to career counselling because he felt that they could lose sight of the kind of overall purpose, the long-term direction of someone's life, in focusing too much on the detail or the immediate, getting of a job. And he also critiques the competence-based model of approach to skills development, which underlies, since the 1980s, a lot of career development. So it's more a technical notion of learning and education development. You just have to get the component competencies right, and then it all comes together for the person. And he also critiqued interviewing in terms of interviewing clients simply as a cluster of techniques. You can see he's very person-centered, very kind of humanistic. So he also proposed that in today's changing world, clients have a greater need for guidance than ever, and the prolonged transitions to unknown destinations, so that requires a lot of ongoing support. He also has the storytelling component to understand what drives and motivates people, the importance of centering on their life themes and uncovering them in a career counselling process. That's something, again, we do in career decision coaching. I've taken on some of his notions, and we ask questions about people's earliest recollections, their biggest challenges growing up, the role models, and we put those all together in a way of understanding where the person's come from and therefore where they're going. So this has been a helicopter view of career development theorists and approaches. To quote Cobus Maria, a South African career writer, he says, "The ultimate aim is to help people not only choose a career and find work, but also to make meaning of their career lives, find a sense of purpose and hope, design a successful life, and make meaningful social contributions." Good, okay. So the next one. Hi, I'm Stephen Gunther, and I'm Hi, I'm Stephen Gunther, the author of Career Decision Coaching, and I'm going to be talking to you today about the kind of obstacles that people have in terms of identifying an ideal career. So two basic phases of the career process. The first one is identifying what the right career is, and the second phase is manifesting that career. So firstly, I'll talk about some of the obstacles in identifying the best career. Well, a lot of people have resistance. They don't have faith in what it is that they want. They're too oriented towards other people and their perspectives. They swallow other people's ideas and agendas. Or they may not feel worthy of having a satisfying career. In these kind of cases, people need work on their self-confidence, and they probably need therapy. Another obstacle is that people often have difficulty making decisions. They're afraid of making the wrong choice, fear of committing to a particular direction, or they've got FOMO, they're afraid of missing out on a better option. In this case, they need help making decisions, and they need therapy or coaching. Thirdly, then sometimes people actually have made a decision, but they kind of undermine it. They know what they want, but they don't really allow themselves to have that. They doubt themselves. They think it's impractical. In this case, people need a lot more support, either external, internal, again, therapy or coaching, or perhaps good friends. Some people are afraid of success or failure, and because making a decision means moving into action, taking on challenges, therefore the possibility of failure. So this is more to do with self-esteem issues, probably need therapy. The second set of obstacles have to do with acting on that career choice, and therefore it's about practicality. So often people lack self-support. As I've described, they have low self-confidence, self-criticism, they have difficulty sustaining interest or energy, and these sort of self-esteem issues need therapy for support. Some people are big procrastinators. The fear of failure that I talked about, they feel anxious, they have self-destructive habits, they're too passive, they have unrealistic planning goals. So this kind of self-sabotage or ungroundedness, again, needs therapy or coaching. Some people try out moving towards their career, but they get stuck, they don't get results, they don't stop following through. So they've got poor or ineffective strategies, they get overwhelmed by external obstacles or circumstances, they don't have enough support for action, and they may not have knowledge of how to move forward. So people in this case need strategy, goal setting, and external support. Sometimes an obstacle is lack of knowledge or skills or experience, and people don't know what kind of training, study to undertake. They don't know how to get the information for that. They have difficulty narrowing down researching. They have difficulty researching information. They don't know how to gain the skills necessary. They're not clear on what kind of experience is necessary. Variously, they don't have enough motivation. So people need to develop the capacity in research, information gathering, or the motivation. So that needs coaching or vocational guidance, and possibly also success on mastermind teams. So both the decision and the action steps require the right kind of support, the right attitude, and what's called flow. So that flow arises from having clear goals which are challenging but still attainable, having strong concentration, focused attention, kind of swept up in the activity. The activity is intrinsically rewarding, which may be the case for some elements of this kind of career action process, but some of them are not. Being fully in the present and getting immediate feedback or results for your activities, and a sense of personal control over the situation. So to achieve that kind of personal flow, people need to have specific goals and a plan of action. They need to do an activity that they're enjoying or passionate about, and they're able to stretch the current capacity level and titrate the right amount of challenge. If it's too low, increase challenge. If it's too great, learn new skills, increase support. Sometimes people face mental health challenges. The opposite of flow is anxiety, depression that gets in the way of stepping towards a rewarding career, and then what they need is therapy.